Hey everyone! Well, a new Ninja Turtles movie is finally here, and as it's the first theatrical release installment in 7 years, it's also, so far, has been the best received of the series. Released, as I record this, got a 97% Rotten Tomato score, and people who have seen it early have told me they really enjoyed it. So, with that in mind, I thought I would offer some go about how I might retroactively fix what is personally my least favorite installment in the franchise, especially when the theatrical release installments nearly 30 years later. Here is how I personally go about fixing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3, so let's get started. Even when I was first initially saw this movie when I was younger, I could tell I was in for something pretty rough. I mean, compared to the other two films that came before it. I mean, like, there were some jokes in the first one, but it was mostly a fairly serious story that pulled more from the original Mirage comics with elements from the 1970 TV series was thrown in. And the second was more family friendly, but with the actual plot line of the actual sequel of the Ooze itself, it still took itself relatively seriously, as I pointed out in my look at that a while back. I mean, but this film is an utter mess tonally and in terms of actually making a coherent plot. I mean, I mentioned this before, but I just mention it again. When it came in to hold an 11-year-old's attention for 95 minutes, there's basically no hope for you. Hmm. I mean, there were both past and present and time travel stories in the series, as well as future ones that were able to do this. So I would definitely try and tone down on all the quips and definitely focus things being more serious storytelling, telling, put the focus solely on trying to get back to their own time with their brother as well as April, which I think should make a nice little segue into who the next fix I would propose for this movie. Another major critique I myself and others have made towards this film was also involved details I did not have access to in the past, as includes how they handled, or rather mishandled, the characters, and didn't really give them much of arcs beyond the surface level. I mean, especially in my case, my favorite turtle, Raph. I mean, how he wanted to have be recognized for their deeds, even though. But it basically comes up near the beginning and also very briefly near the denouement, with the other turtles more or less having the same kind of surface level problem of not really learning much through their arcs and more or less staying the same basic archetypes throughout the entire experience. Also applies to April as well as Wit, who is implied to be Casey's ancestor, and also some random rat who is implied to be Splinter's ancestor, who, for the life of me, I still also cannot believe that they insinuated even indirectly in that time frame. This is a similar problem faced by the villains like the daimyo Lord Noranaga. I almost said Nobunaga, but still, I'll get to what I fixed for this in a moment. And the Arm Sealer Walker, who definitely lacked the charisma of the Shredder or even the goofy charm of Toka and Razor, who, while not quite be Bob and Rocksteady, did become cult favorites in the franchise over time. One of those like moi. And this fix I'm proposing would be to tie things together more, like Donnie learning to use like more ancient tech, like Michelangelo trying to maintain his sense of spirit and adventure as he's getting older. I mean, I mean, one's like Raphael still trying to help a young man named Yoshi with his temper, something that he has himself has struggled with in the other two films. And while I'm on that subject, why not make Yoshi an ancestor of Hamato Yoshi? Why not make Walker connected to Perry in the previous films? Or better yet, instead of Norinaga, why not make the daimyo part of the Oroku clan, basically the precursor to the Foot clan, which basically effectively make him Shredder's ancestor. So this would be obviously centuries before Saki was born, let alone on turning the Foot clan an instrument of crime in New York and around the world, which will also tie into the other two fix-up which was in this video. One of the most maligned aspects of the film is its visual presentation, and not just the downgrades to like the animatronic costumes, but also the editing cinematography. Looking up who did on IMDb, it started making a lot of sense to me about why this happened. I mean, both from perspectives of now as well as when I first saw this movie nearly 20 years ago, I cannot recall a single shot or fight scene that I think stood out at me visually or in terms of quality. This would be a twofold solution. I mean, I would wait until I have like the time and or money to rehire Jim Henson's Creature Shop, as the second movie was the last one he was really involved with before Jim passed, but his company still continued to do impressive work for decades, such as like the dinosaurs on the hit show Dinosaurs, and on other many films. I think that meant delaying the film sometimes the optimal option. On that subject, you would definitely do the best to stage the action in a way that stood out visually. Perhaps you could emulate some of the Shigeki films that they're taking inspiration from. I know not every new director can be making like Jurassic Park or The Fugitive. Two other movies are turning 30 years old this year. It's sold up pretty well today. Hey, but even when you have limitations and sit beside you, it is possible to work with the limitations they have against them. The first movie costs less to make and it still holds up great even now. Oddities like the visible mouth of the body double and some shots aside. Yeah. Apart from all the other issues I mentioned post Fixes 2, the finale is honestly one of the things that suffered the most in the movie we end up hitting due to the aforementioned budget and time constraints, which some other people working in the movie had to corroborate. The original sequence they storyboarded with the dragon becoming a dragon and basically trying to burn down the compound, catching Walker and nearly hit the Turtles of Crossfire basically had to be scrapped. Instead, we ended up getting the daimyo in a bell with a face full of soot, and Walker somehow vanishing hits the water of the ocean, and which other people pointed out. Yeah. And I'm not even going to dignify when they actually made back to their timeline response, which is an utter mess. Which basically, as I pointed out, doesn't really see the characters grow or change that much, I mean, compared to even the other two films, or let alone subsequent ones. I would have a multi-layered approach to who fixing this. I mean, this would have Walker, who would now be an ancestor of Perry's, being on the ground level, ended up being defeated by the ray weapons he was trying to sell towards the daimyo's army. Hermie, and a twist of cruel irony. And also, this will tie into how instead of being Norinaga, the daimyo would basically don similar armor to the Shredder, albeit in a much earlier time frame because he's part of the Roku clan instead. and also be a direct fire on the roof, which also tie into their two movies, confrontation, just showing how they got progressively better at dealing with him, and showing how they've grown into full-fledged ninjas, that they're no longer mere students, and the teenagers will soon become young men, adult turtles, so to speak. And rather than the simple one about Splinter putting on Mikey's lampshade gift as a present, which is a pretty middling joke, and trust me, of all the ones I've analyzed over the years, and will continue to do so, I've seen my fair share. Splinter would, in his own way, as their eccentric but wise master and father figure, to Michelangelo because of his spirit and free he willed nature, he will always be him no matter how old he gets, and he will put the lampshade back on Mikey himself. Well, which would also, I think, be a much better note to end on than just like the dancing. I do admit, like the honor guard dancing to Baltimore in the tavern is still pretty funny. Yeah. After this film became the lowest grossing theatrical installment even to this day, it would be 14 years before they would even attempt another movie, which is thankfully a vast improvement, but as I pointed before, it's pretty low bar to clear. And also the Rise movie last year on Netflix, I really enjoyed. As we're ending that series, so we're transitioning to this new continuity, this new is going to spring off of. Heck, even for all their faults, I'd actually kind of like the Michael Bay produced ones, just for how bombastic they are, and just how even though he didn't produce them, his particular brand of Bayhem is still very much in play. Heck, even the storyline this movie told was actually done better than 2012 series 5th season, with episodes 7 through 9, Legend of the Yokai storyline, especially how it handled Raph's role in the story, and as I mentioned, the respective ancestors of both Yoshi and of the Roku clan as well. Even found a way to work in characters like Usagi Yojimbo, the Rabbit Samurai, as well as the legendary figure Kintaro. So, that'll be all for now. I will see you very soon when I look at Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem, dudes.